Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another Beard Guys video. Today I am going to give you a rundown of all of my sensitivity settings in PUBG on console. This is always a hugely requested thing, and I have done videos on this in the past, but my settings tend to change over time and I've tweaked them quite a bit since last time I did a video. So it's definitely worth doing a new one, particularly with the frame rate increase. I found that the 60 FPS mode now made me want to turn up some of my sensitivities a little bit. So I want to just run through today what my current settings are, why I have them set like that, and then show you very quickly a couple of the other things I've changed, like my custom key bindings and my hair triggers on my Xbox Elite controller, or at least what's left of my Xbox Elite controller as it slowly falls to pieces. Don't forget to click like on the video if you do enjoy it, and subscribe if you want to see more PUBG console content. You can also catch us live streaming PUBG every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over on twitch.tv/thebeardguys. So here's what everybody wants to see. These are my current settings, and it's always worth caveating this with, you can't just match up someone's settings and expect to suddenly be really good at PUBG. Everyone plays the game in a different way, and I think depending on what other games you're used to playing, that can have a big impact on how you like your settings. Some people like to run really high sends, some like to run really low, some run a bit of a mix, and I guess I have a bit of a mix. But if you're completely stuck with what to do with your settings, this might give you a little bit of a starting point. So I wouldn't worry about the Y-axis. You either have Y inverted or you don't. I wouldn't bother switching that if you don't use inverted Y. That's just for me and all the other GoldenEye N64 players, I think. My dead zone setting I have on 20. I would have it lower than that, but my Elite controller is pretty old, and if I do, then I get stick drift. So it's pretty much the only reason I have it on 20. Otherwise, I would bring that down a touch. Dead zone is basically how much input you have to put into the sticks before it starts reacting. So the lower setting is going to give you more sensitivity. Moving on down, forward running I have on 30. I find for me, that gives me a nice balance of movement. I feel I'm quite in control of it. Can be quite fluid when I turn corners, go through doors, rotate, and that kind of stuff. 30 seems to be the sweet spot. I used to run it a bit higher. I brought it down and that felt nice for me. Movement sends I've just had 100 for ages now. I wouldn't worry too much about that one unless anyone has a genius idea for changing that is going to make my gameplay any better. I would like to add, if anyone has any feedback on these settings, something they think that I might change that would actually help me, then feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be interested to hear that. I am very happy with these. They do work well for me. I'm getting good games doing it, but there's always room for improvement. My vert sends I have at absolute bottom. I know this triggers a lot of people, but this works for me. Vert sends is basically how quickly your controller goes up and down like this when you look up and down. And I find it really useful for controlling recoil. If I suddenly put that up high, let me just show you controlling recoil for a sec. So we'll shoot at this thing with a red dot. You know, we're a little bit all over the place, but not too bad. And then if I now put that down a bit, or sorry, put that up, I should say, we'll throw it up to like 100, and then we'll try and do the same thing. And you'll see I keep accidentally pulling it down too far, and that's because you can see it's now really sensitive for looking up and down. So I'm not sure it matters quite what you have that setting on. I'd say it's more important to have that setting something consistent that you get used to as you play. And the longer you play with it on one setting, the more comfortable you're going to be controlling recoil with that setting on. So moving on, my general is one of the ones I decided to change recently since the 60 FPS increase. I've put that up to 18 now. That actually went up quite a lot. I think I had it on maybe 14 or 15. It's now on 18 out of 20. So almost as high as it can go. And that's basically controls doing this. This is your general looking around when you're not ADSing or anything like that. It's just looking around like this. And I find it really useful to have that as high as possible so that you can spin around, see your surroundings, spin and snap to targets. And 18 works very nicely for me. I don't know if I'll creep that up any higher. 18 seems a good balance for me of reaction versus control. Moving further down, my vehicle driver sense is just on 10. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just leave it in the middle. That works for me. Aim acceleration I've had disabled for a while. I did dabble with having it on, but personally I prefer having it off. That seems to work better for me. Over the shoulder aiming I have at 10 now. I think that went up a little bit since my last video. So over the shoulder is this when you're doing the old Soft aim, I often call it. Soft aim, over the shoulder aim. That is your sends when you're in this, which is normally fighting people quite close. But I tend to have my general sends up very high, and then my ADS and over the shoulder sends quite low. And rather than dragging between targets like this very slowly, what I tend to do is I'll shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, you know, like this. Rather than dragging those sends around, I'm only really using my sensitivity settings to make small adjustments when I'm tracking targets like that. So I wouldn't be going like dragging around like this with my ADS. I'd be, you know, looking at this guy, and then I'd be looking at this guy, and, you know, then back there. So this is kind of how I approach it, rather than needing it to be quick so I can drag my cursor across, if you get what I mean. So that's why you might find some of my settings are quite low, because I'm not spending lots of time doing this. So that's my over shoulder, that's 10. My 1x is now at 6, that went up a little bit. 1x is your red dot, your iron sight, and your holographic. 2x is on 7, 3x is on 8, 4x is on 5, 6x is on 4, and 8x is on 3. I put the 3x up quite a lot because I was using that for a lot of spraying, and it just felt like it needed to go up a bit more as I was playing at the higher frame rate, often going into first person doing it, and that seemed to work nicely for me. All the others are a little bit lower, and then the 15x is still up on 20, because that's the only way it seems to ever really work. So I'll just quickly show you how that looks with the different scopes. This is my SLR, by the way, with the fancy PCS skin. You like that? Yeah, thanks PUBG for giving me all those skins. So this is the 2x, just dragging that around with the SLR at this sort of range. Then with the 3x at a decent 3x range. You can see there's a little bit of control there. It's not too slow, not too wild. Kind of works nicely for me. Then if we move up to the 4 and we aim a little further away, you can see it can kind of handle this. And you'll notice at different distances, like if I'm trying to aim here with the 4x, it's going to be kind of difficult. If I'm trying to aim miles away, it's going to be too sensitive. So it's finding the right sensitivity for the distance that you normally fire that weapon at. So then if we move up to the 6x, which is my favorite scope I like to use all the time, we can go at quite nice long range like this. Maybe somewhere like here. And then the 8 gives a little bit of control over some of the longer distances. Maybe somewhere like this. And then the 15x, if you ever decide to use the 15x firing absolutely miles away, you can aim at some lad who is sitting all the way up there. However far that is, quite a long way. So those are my main settings, and that's probably what most people want to see. I just want to really quickly show you my custom key bindings. I've got a video on the channel going over them in detail, and I'll put a link to that down below, but I'll just show you them quickly whilst we're here. So my custom key bindings, the main thing I changed that I talked about in the other video was adding hold to crouch to, well, down on the D-pad you can see here, and you might be asking, Ben, why have you put hold to crouch on down on the D-pad? Well, the answer to that is because I have a paddle on my Xbox Elite controller that I have bound to down on the D-pad. And what that means is that I can use a paddle now for hold to crouch. So I have a paddle on the left-hand side of my Elite controller, and when I squeeze in the left trigger and the left paddle at the same time, I'm going to ADS and crouch, and when I let go of that left-hand side of the controller or stop clenching it, I'm going to stand up and stop ADSing. I find it very, very useful indeed for crouching pretty much every time I spray. You have to be careful because sometimes you'll see me in recent games where I'll crouch when it's not ideal to, because you'll lose the line of sight when you crouch and, you know, the guy goes under a ridge or something. And sometimes you've got to be careful if you start shooting as soon as you go down like that. You can see my gun's kind of still waving around. Yeah, that little animation there. So sometimes if you fire too quickly, you get caught in the animation and your gun is flying all over the place, so you need to be careful. But other than that, it's been very, very useful, and I would definitely recommend, if you've got a controller with a paddle like an Elite or a Scuff, that is definitely something that's worth checking out. It's been a real game changer for me, particularly for higher recoil weapons like the Groza or the Barrel or full auto MK or something like that. So that's the main thing I changed in my custom bindings. I now use B to prone. I just press that and I'll go into prone, which is why you'll see me accidentally go prone every now and again as I press B through my 3 years of muscle memory of my old controller setup. And I also added a couple of little tweaks to my combination keys. If you click in the right stick here, you can see I've got some quick binds for using meds. You'll see I can now press LB and Y, for instance, to use a first aid, and all these other quick bindings that I can now use. Some really cool stuff in there. It's definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. Would definitely recommend that. And if you're having trouble with your hair triggers on your Xbox Elite controller causing you issues when you drive, make sure you go and check out our previous video where I talk about how to change the dead zone setting for your hair triggers on your Elite controller to stop that affecting your driving. I'll put a link to that video down below, so do go and check it out. That's about it for today, so I hope you found that useful. If you did, please click the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to leave a comment if you have any ideas on improvements for my settings or alternative setups you like to run. So that's enough from me. My name is Ben, we are the Beard Guys, and I'll see you next time. Oh, 3 teams left. We've got, is it 3 teams of 2? Oh, it is. Look, we got Sacred. Oh my god, no. Oh my god. Sacred. He just ran over 3 people. Oh my god. Just 1 left. There's only 1 lad left. And they, oh my god.